so pure-hearted. He
So,
glorifies everybody.
so Advait Pran Prabhu, he feels a little uncomfortable, but Prabhu, if I have your permission, just 1 minute, I'm just sharing a few things here. So, Advait Pran Prabhu, he was in Manipal Engineering College, and he was the only devotee in the whole college. There was nobody else, and still he was fixed. Like he was he actually, his curve like went like this exponentially. So from just having, I mean, he was a devotee from childhood. Pretty much he had interactions, and his family was devotional, and his parents, probably even grandparents, he had association, and then he was doing seva in some way in his local city, and then he moved to engineering college. And of course, in engineering college, the atmosphere, how it is, very different. So it was like Prahlad between all the Hiranyakashyap, so many.
Prabhu, I think now it's
so he was very big inspiration, because we were many actually in our batch. So we were thinking, if he can do it in MIT, then at least we are so many, we should at least do some some fraction of that. So he was doing a lot of service. Actually, I could understand how his graph went up is because he served the Vaishnavas. Any devotee who was coming there, whether it's a Prabhu or a Maharaj, Brahmacharis, he was going, humbling, serving them. And his philosophy was a little bit different initially, but as he did service and everything, all his conceptions and everything became so clear, and he like kept going up. So once Nirbhay Prabhu and all these devotees, Advait Pran Prabhu, they were arranging for a drama. So he came there in our place. I think, if I remember correctly, that's when he was chanting 16 rounds. So I was asking him, because I was not chanting 16 rounds. So I was asking him how he's able to manage. So he actually very, very, so superficially, if you talk to him, he will, he will not feel comfortable about telling things. So you have to really go and connect with him. Then only he will really share his heart. So he shared with me that, unless I'm doing 16 rounds, there's no use. So he told me in a very encouraging way, just try a little bit and you'll be able to do it. And I tried next day and I was able to chant 16 rounds. And first day it was very difficult. But after that, it happened for the whole month automatically, actually. So I was thinking it's Prabhu's mercy, which is coming. So like that, Advait Pran Prabhu was very encouraging, and he, inspired me. And I'm very, very grateful to him. He was taking association of all the swamis and devotees and everything, and he used to share with us. He had huge, many GB of data there with lectures, kirtan, so many things. May have got crashed by now, I think a few times, but at that time it was like a lot. And even after coming to US, in fact in Vrindavan also, first time we went to Vrindavan, Advait Pran Prabhu only took us to the holy places like Radha Kund and stuff. I think it was my second time, but Govardhan Parikrama we did first time together, all of us. And of course, we were at a much different level than Advait Pran Prabhu. He was very, he was initiated by that time. In fact, when Maharaj was, somebody recommended him to Maharaj, Maharaj immediately, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, one of the senior most Maharaj, the senior most actually in ISKCON. And he said yes to him. Maharaj even had observed his enthusiasm and everything. And even after coming here, he lived in the temple for many years, actually. I don't know any of the people in the conference call who have had such a great fortune of living in the temple, serving in the temple for so many years, such a disciplined life, and Prabhu learned so much. So today I'm very, very happy that Prabhu has kindly accepted our request and come here to speak. I can keep speaking about him for a long time, but we want to hear from him. So I will stop here. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Over to you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Can you see me, Prabhu, and hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji, very clearly.
Okay, Hare Krishna. I was just thinking, there's a story about how the whole village came together near a mountain, and the mountain was shaking, and they were expecting something miraculous to happen. And from a crack of the mountain comes a mouse. So it just seems like Prabhu is, it's his nature to glorify devotees. Although I'm not deserving, I've been very fortunate to have the association of many of you devotees, Anirbhai Prabhu, Chaitanya Prabhu, Abhiram Gopal Prabhu, of course. So I feel very fortunate to have spent a good portion of my early 20s with all of you and derived inspiration from your own acharan and your words. So I am actually eternally grateful. Thank you, Prabhu. So should we begin, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Over to you, please.
Okay, so before we start, I'll just have some invocation prayers to the Guru Parampara. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militamena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtham Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Shahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sute Devi Pranamam Haripriye Vancha Kalpataru Drishti Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhi Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Kam Karoti Vacharam Pangam Nangaitigram Yat Kripa Tamaham Mande Shri Gurum Dinataram Karanam Pramananamaram Shri Chaitanya Shuram. Hare Krishna. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak something for my own purification and for the service of many of you Vaishnavas from whom I've derived a lot from. So in that mood, I will try to present something for the next 30 to 40 minutes or so. And then in the middle, since this is going to be more like a discussion, although I can't see you because I'm sharing my full screen, please feel free to unmute, ask questions, and let it be more interactive. Right? And of course, there will be time at the end of this session also. The instruction that I've been given by Abhiram Gopal Prabhu is to just summarize chapter number 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam. He just gave a little bit background, how many of your devotees have been going over the 7th canto Bhagavatam recently, and then probably Bhagavad Gita you must have finished. So this section, right, is a very technical section of the Bhagavatam. There will be some technical concepts and terminologies so that we can understand the big picture. And of course, many of you are doctors, so you're used to lots of technical terminologies. So I think we can use this Shravan and Kirtan for glorifying Krishna, right? As Krishna says, Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yo Veti Tatvataha. Yaktva Deva Deha Punarjanma Naiti Mameti. So Arjuna, if we understand the appearance of these incarnations, how Krishna appears, what are these incarnations, what is their presence in the whole cosmological framework, both in the Param Vyoma of the spiritual sky and the material world, then it will give us something to meditate on so that we can purify ourselves. So again, there's a lot to cover, so I'll try to go a little slow and have some pictures also that we can see as you hear, because Prabhupada said one picture is worth 1,000 words. But if we cannot complete this section, right, maybe we can have a session 2 sometime else, or if you have any questions, we can clarify it then. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayana Namaskritya, Naram Chaivam Narottamam, Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye, Nashtaprayesha Badreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavatam Shloke, Bhagavat. Very nice to keep. So, we know how Srimad Bhagavatam started, right? In the first couple chapters, I'm sure you have completed studying. So we know how the sages came at Naimisharanya, and Naimishe Nimisha Kshetri Rishaya Shaunakayada Satra Satyam Swargaya Lokaya Sahasra Samamasata. So to perform 1,000-year sacrifice, they came together and they welcomed Suta Goswami and they asked him 6 questions that I'm sure you have covered. So the first 3 chapters of the Bhagavatam discusses the 6 questions posed to Suta Goswami and his answers. And ending with this chapter, beginning with the next chapter, of course, the whole history of how Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken gets revealed. So you have discussed the first 2 questions that the sages of Naimisharanya posed, right? They say that Tatra Tatranjani Ayushman Bhavataryat Vinishchitam Pumsa Ekantata Shreyas Tanne Shastitum Arhasi. So they first ask, Pumsa Ekantata Shreyas, what is the most beneficial thing that can be talked and heard and discussed that people have to follow? Why do they ask this? Because in the Vedic realm, it is so vast. It caters to every person of every consciousness in every sphere of life. So there might be things that people might be performing which looks like spiritual, but it may be material in the guise of being spiritual. Krishna talks about this in Bhagavad Gita, that there are many transcendentalists, Veda Vadarata Partha, Kriya Vishesha Bahunam, they're performing big yagnas, big ceremonies, sacrifices. It looks like it's spiritual, but what is their intention? Their intention is Janma Karma, to get better Janma, better Karma. It says it is to go to the heavenly planets and enjoy in the heavenly realms. So when Krishna and Balaram were also there in Vrindavan, they were feeling so hungry, the cowherd boys. And when they asked Krishna, Krishna says, go to the nearby place here, and the Brahmanas were performing Angiras sacrifice. And we know the story, how they do not give Krishna and Balaram food also, because they're focused on the sacrifice to go to the heavenly planets. Bhogaishwaryam Gatim Prati. So what Bhagavatam is that give me only those things. Bhurini, Bhuri Karmani. There are so many things that have been told in the Shastras. Shrotavyami Vibhagashaha. There are so many Vibhagas or portions of the scriptures. Samudratya Manishaya. Please give me only the essence. Yenatma Suprasidati. Right? Those are the first 2 questions. Second chapter, Suta Goswami describes how it is only bhakti. Ahaituki apratiyatam, unmotivated, uninterrupted bhakti or devotional service that really suprasidati, that helps appease the heart, that makes one really happy. Now the 3rd, 4th and 5th questions are around asking Suta Goswami about the avatars of the Supreme Lord. They say that tasya karman udharani, his activities, the activities of Supreme Lord is so magnanimous. Parigitani Suribi, great transcendentalists sing his glories. So please, Leelaya Dadata Kala, please tell us, Shraddha Dananam, with a lot of faith, please tell us with a lot of faith. We want to hear all of these incarnations of the Supreme Lord. And what are all his Purusha incarnations, his Leela Avataras? They ask these questions, and the answers to those are summarized here in the 3rd chapter. Why do we need to know this? Because in this material world, when we are struggling, right, it's said that we are in this whole ocean of material existence, and there are sharks in all 6 directions of lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, all of these sharks. And there is one boat that can rescue us, and that is Parasparanukathanam Bhavanam Bhagavati Yashaha. This katha of Leela, of describing the incarnations of the Lord. And the whole Srimad Bhagavatam basically is an encapsulated version of all of these avatars. Canto number 3, we hear about Varahadev's pastimes, Kapila Dev's pastimes. Canto number 4, you hear about Prithu Maharaj's pastimes. Canto number 5, you hear about Rishabdev. Canto number 6, of course, Ajamil pastimes. But 7, you've all been hearing about Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu, the story of them and how Nashingadev appears. Canto number 8, Vamanadev, Mohini Murti. Canto 9, Ramachandra. Canto 10, Krishna. All right. So all of these that have been described in this few verses of the third canto have been elaborately described in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said that this whole Bhagavatam is the manifestation of Krishna. Padau Yadiyo Pratamadvitiyo. The lotus feet of Krishna, the first 2 cantos. Tritiya Chaurau Katitav Yaduru, the 2 beautiful thighs of Krishna, the 3rd and 4th. Nabhistata Panchamayeva Shashtav. His navel and chest is the 5th canto, 6th canto, 7th, 8th, 9th. Mukharavindam Dashamam Prapulam, beautiful smiling face of Krishna is the 10th canto. And then the forehead, 11th, and the head, 12th. Like this, the whole Bhagavatam is Krishna personified and has all of these leelas. It's like a beautiful transcendental movie that is going to unfold. But because these questions are asked, what does Suta Goswami do? He gives a trailer of this movie. A trailer of this. Before you watch a movie, you want a trailer to see, wow, how beautiful is this movie that's going to unfold. And in this trailer, he does not have time to explain the very intricate details which are going to unfold. And so he just mentions and gives snippets of all of these topics that you have been reading about in the previous few verses in the 3rd canto. You might think, wow, this is so detailed. Manvantara Avataras, Leela Avataras, Guna Avataras, Purusha Avataras. Of course, then there is Vibhutis, there is Ashesha, Shaktabesha Avataras. Then, of course, the Supreme Lord himself. What is all of this? How does this all glue together? And trust me, it is not a very easy topic to comprehend. When we surrender to Krishna, when you hear from authentic books, you can start meditating on this gradually, right? So Sanatan Goswami, when he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Varanasi, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him shiksha of all of these topics. And there Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes this in great detail. So we will touch upon that a little bit, so that when you see the bigger picture, you will be able to understand the specifics of all of these avatars or incarnations, if that's okay. So Prabhu said you can take any one verse and maybe expand it from there, right? Thinking about this, I was thinking the most famous and the most celebrated verse in this 3rd canto that is especially dear to all the Vaishnavas, right, is that verse that you have all been reading about. Ete chamsha kala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrare Vyakulam Lokam Hridayanti Yuge Yuge. Right, we have read this, and I'm sure yesterday I just tuned in for a few minutes. Then, of course, I had some work to take care of. Had to bathe my daughter and put her to sleep, so I had to exit. But I saw that you were reading the purports and discussing the purports. So, if you have discussed the purport of this verse, it is so elaborate, right? And there are so many intricate details. And this is a verse that can be expanded to encapsulate all of these incarnations. So let's look at this in a little bit of detail. Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. When you hear about Yuge Yuge, some other verses that come to your mind is from the Bhagavad Gita, right? I'm sure all of you know this. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma samsthapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna says, to establish dharma, to kill the miscreants, and to give pleasure to my devotees, I come yuga after yuga. Ramayana also describes this, how Narad Muni is telling this to Valmiki. He says, Na vidyate yasya cha janma karmana va nanama rupe guna dosha eva va tathapi loka pyaya sambhavaya swamaya tan anukulam richati. That Supreme Lord, he comes yuga after yuga after yuga. And how does he come? This chapter describes it. Don't think that the Supreme Lord and his incarnations have come because of their previous karma. Janma karmava. It is not karma. For us, I have taken this body because of my past karma. We have come because of our past desires. What is karma? Sridhar Swami says, Apurnasya nija purtate cheshtaha iti karma. Apurna, something is unfulfilled. I need some kind of a fulfillment. whether it's physical, emotional, on different layers. And to fulfill something that's unfulfilled in me, I perform an activity. I'm hungry, I want to eat. I'm thirsty, I want to drink. I want companionship, I want to get married. I want some kind of social life, I want friends. So you perform activities because of a need that is inherent, that is unfulfilled. But these incarnations that come of the Supreme Lord come only to attract us back to the eternal realm. Janma karma. Their janma is not like us, their karma is not like us. Nanama rupa. Their rupa is not like us, like what we have. Nanama rupe guna dosha evava. They don't have the guna dosha of the three modes that we have been discussing in Bhagavad Gita. Those modes that make us perform activities, they are not bound by all of that. Tathapi, yet lokapyaya sambhavaya, just for the betterment of the living entities, just out of compassion, just out of mercy, the Supreme Lord comes, Swambhavami Atmamayaya, by his own internal potency, his Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya potency that we have all studied in the Bhagavad Gita as well. Having said that, first thing to address, right, is this word starts with Ete Chamsha Kalapumsa. There are so many portions and plenary portions of portions and portions of plenary portions. Why is this being said? Because it is innumerable. Here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke to Sanatana Goswami for 2 months straight. And then Mahaprabhu says, oh, I just gave you a small drop from this ocean. In the next 20 minutes, how much can we cover, right? So it is only a small fraction that we can cover. So the first question is, does Krishna, Swayam Rupa Krishna, that Supreme Krishna in Goloka Vrindavana. So what we are going to spend our next 20 minutes on is look at the cosmology of how Krishna has expanded into all of these avatars. Then we will see where the 3 avatars that you have been discussing about, right, which are the Purusha avatars, the 3 Vishnus, where do they fall in the grand scheme of the layout of how Krishna expands. And then we will see how they create this material world and how Kshirodakshaya Vishnu is the source for bringing the other incarnations to this material world. And finally, we'll talk about the Virat Rupa, which is an imaginary conception of the Lord with some beautiful examples. So, Swayam Rupa Krishna, that original Krishna who is in the spiritual realm, right? He does not come, right? Every time when there's an incarnation, it is not Krishna coming. Chaitanya Charitamrita says this. Krishna does not have time to go into all of these details in the Bhagavad Gita. It is only the preliminary book to help us surrender to Krishna. But Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Swayam Bhagavanera Karma Nai Bara Harana Srishti Karta Vishnu Soy Jagata Palana. So Swayam Bhagavanera Karna, the Supreme Lord's karma or activity is not to destroy the demons, all of this. No, it is Vishnu who is the Srishtikarta, who is the person who has helped put together this material manifestation. It is his activity to take care of all of these administrative things within the material world. It is not Krishna. It is only one time in the day of Brahma that Krishna personally comes. Prema rasa ninyasa korelo aswadana raga marga bhakti korolo pracharana. Krishna Swayam Rupa Krishna in original form, cowherd boy in Vrindavan, in Goloka Vrindavan, the highest realm of the spiritual world. That Krishna comes only once in the day of Brahma. Out of the day of Brahma has 1,000 yugas or yuga cycles. In that one yuga cycle, in one Kali Yuga, Mahaprabhu comes, and one Dwapar Yuga, which is this Dwapar Yuga, this Krishna comes. And that is all beautifully described. All the other times, the Krishna who has come, or the different incarnations who have come, are expansions of this Krishna. That is the point I wanted to make. If we go into the details of this, time is never enough. For every topic, it needs one class to go over. So, first is Swayam Rupa Krishna, right? And this Krishna, to understand the spiritual realm, right? This Krishna We all chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But what does the word Krishna mean? One may say, yes, Krishna means all attractive. That is true. But there is a definition to the word Krishna also that Jiva Goswami described, that Prabhupada describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada says, Krishir Bhu Vachako Shabdo. This Krish, na word has Krish and na. Krish, Krishir Bhu Vachako Shabdo means Bhu Vachako. Means he is the supreme origin for creating, destroying, maintaining of this whole material creation. It is a personification of greatness. It's a personification of greatness, Krish. And na iti nivrittair vachakaha. Na means ananda, beauty, and intense happiness, intense bliss. That is the word na, it personifies. Tadiyam akhyam. These two, when it comes together, parabrahma krishneti abhidhiyate. That supreme person who is a manifestation of the supermost greatness and the supermost sweetness, that is Krishna. Rupa Goswami says that Tunde Tandavani Rate Vitunam Tundavani Labdaye. I need 1,000,000 tongues to chant Krishna's holy names. Na jane janita kiyapter amrita. I do not know how much amrit, how much of nectar, Krishneti Varnadvai are there in these dvai, 2 syllables of Krishna. That is Krishna. So is Krishna more great or is Krishna more sweet? Right? That is a question. So if we ask many of you, you might say, no, Krishna is more sweet. Somebody may say, no, Krishna is more great. So in the spiritual realm, the Vaikunta planets are the planets which have Shuddha, which is very pure Aishwarya Prema, where Krishna is only celebrated as being the greatest. That is the Vaikunta planets, where all the different Vishnu Tattvas exists. Then there is Dwaraka. Dwaraka is basically Madhurya Mishra, Aishwarya Prema, where it is Aishwarya, grandeur, the magnanimity and the greatness of Krishna, but mixed with Madhurya. There is a little bit of Madhurya or sweetness that's mixed. Although Krishna is the king of Dwarka, Sudama comes and Sudama embraces Krishna. Although he is the supreme lord, nobody embraces Narayana in the Vaikunta planets. Then when you go to Mathura, what happens? That same Krishna is filled with lots of love and sweetness. But there is a little bit Aishwarya also. So it's Aishwarya Mishra. Aishwarya is being mixed with Madhurya Prema. But in Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna is in Swayam Rupa, original state, then it is only pure Madhurya Prema. It is Shuddha Madhurya Prema. We need to understand this to understand how from that Supreme Lord Krishna, how all these incarnations have come to being. And then we can understand the perspective of who has appeared, how have they appeared, who is the gateway, and who is the source. So the supermost expression of Krishna in his most beautiful, compassionate, and sweet form is Swayam Rup Krishna, Natabara, Venudhara, who is dancing, Navakishora, young, and the lover of the gopis, Gopi Jana Vallabha. That is Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, Swayam Rupa Krishna. Please stop me, unmute your camera, unmute your microphones, and you can stop me, ask me any questions, or if it's getting too technical, we can even skim through this also. Just putting it out there. So from the Swayam Rupa Krishna comes, there are 2 expansions. First expansion is called, these are called Prakash Expansion. So Swayam Prakasha means his own manifestation of his expansion. So the first of these expansion is called Prabhava Prakasha. Prabhava Prakasha means it is the same Krishna, Navakishore, Natabara, Venudhara, Gopavesh, same Krishna with the same bodily features, but he has expanded into multiple forms. One example is Rasa Leela dance, where it's the same Krishna with his tinkling ankle bells, playing his flute, dancing with the gopis. Right? Vikriditam Vrajavadur Idam cha Vishnu. Sukadeva Goswami is saying that Vrajavadus, with the cowherd damsels of Vrindavan, Krishna was dancing. He is the same Krishna who is the source of all of these Vishnus. He has expanded himself into so many forms. But can anybody tell of all of these different forms, how can you recognize which is a prabhava prakash or an expanded? It's like one candle from whom all the other candles are lit. How would you know which Krishna is Swayam Rupa, the original candle, and which Krishna is the prabhava prakasha candle or Krishna? Can anybody say? So Krishna is expanded and is dancing with the covered damsels in prabhava prakasha expansions.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So
Yes, Hare Krishna.
is it the Krishna that's dancing with Radharani?
Yes, Hari Bol, yes. So the only way you would know who is the Swayam Rupa Krishna is the Krishna who is dancing with Radharani in the center here. And of all the other Krishnas dancing with the other gopis, they are Prabhava Prakasha expansions. Then there is Vaibhava Prakasha. I will go a little faster because we have limited time. Vaibhava Prakasha means it's the same original Krishna, but either his mood is a little different or his bodily color is a little different. And who is the example for that? There is a picture here. So of course it is Sri Balaram. He is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in Sevyabhiman, in the mood of serving Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Sevyabhiman, in Sevabhiman is in taking service. So in this way, Krishna expands as Balaram. Also, Krishna expands as other expansions as we go through. So I will go through this fast. The reason I'm saying this is that original Krishna does not leave Vrindavana. So that Krishna who's in Mathura is slightly different. Although it's the original Krishna, he has a slightly less potency than the original Krishna. The scriptures describe Vrindavanam parityajya padam ekam na gacchati. Krishna does not put one step outside Vrindavana. Then who is that Krishna who has left and gone to Mathura, who has gone to Dwaraka, who is eternally residing in the spiritual world in Mathura, in Dwaraka? It is expansions of this Krishna. It is a Vaibhava Prakasha expansion of Krishna. So basically, there are many terminologies. When we have a chance at a future time, we will go through this in great detail. But suffice to say for now that this Balarama, when he expands in Mathura and Dwaraka, as you can see here, which is why I put this picture together, there is a Vilasa expansion, which is, there are two types, Prabhava Vilasa and Vaibhava Vilasa. Prabhava Vilasa is the 4 Chaturvyuha, which is Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Sankarshana and Pradyumna. And these are the expansions who are guarding the fortress of Dwaraka in Dwarakapuri. And it is that same Krishna who expands as Mathura Krishna or Devaki Nandana Krishna, who is now residing in Mathura here. Like this, from one of these Sankarshanas, there is a further expansion. There is a Vaibhava Vilasa expansion, which is the second Chaturvyuha expansions, or the second set of Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha and Vasudeva. And from this second expansion comes something called Swaamsha. So let me show this. Yes, so maybe this picture will help explain it. So from the second expansion of Sankarshana comes Swaamsha, Ansh. Ansh means, of course, we have Abhiram Gopal's son, who is also Ansh, right? So it's a plenary portion or an Amsha or a portion of a portion of the portion of a portion of Krishna. And that Amsha of the Supreme Lord expands as a Karanadakshay Vishnu or Mahavishnu to create this material universe. So we might think, right? Oh, I just want to go to Hawaii and I want to enjoy a vacation there. But if you really go and try to build an itinerary together, which island do I go? Do I go to the Big Island? Do I go to Kauai? Do I go to Maui? Which beach in Maui? Which hotel do I stay in? Where do I snorkel? Where do I go to a luau? Whatever, right? So if we think I want to go to the spiritual world, it is Krishna. That is like saying, I want to go to Hawaii. But there is so much spiritual variegatedness here, right? That when you read these books, I heard this recently, page by page, become a sage. Escape the cage before you age, right? When we read these books, when we meditate on them, then it lets you meditate on the Nitya Leela that's going on in the spiritual world, where you can always think of Krishna and be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So from this Swa Amsha of the Supreme Lord, right, comes all of these different incarnations. The first of these incarnations is from this section here. Again, if you can see this. So from this Mahasankarshana, like for example, right, I remember when I was with some of you devotees, of course with Abhiram Gopal Prabhu too, we in Vrindavan, we chant this beautiful song, Vibhavari Shesha Aloka Pravesha Nidrachari Utha Jiva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Hayagriva Narsimha Vamana Shri Madhusudana Brajanarandana Shama Putana Ghatana Kaitavan Satana Jaya Dasharati Rama. When we chant these names, it looks like it's Krishna only. But if you see who is Govinda, who is Vishnu, who is Madhusudana, who is Narsimha, who is Hari, they're all expansions from this Vaibhava Vilasa expansion, who comes from Narayana, who comes from Mula Sankarshana, who comes from Balarama, who finally comes from Krishna. And as it comes lower and lower and lower, right, then the manifestation of the potency of this becomes lesser and lesser and lesser. In the purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna, if it's 100%, the entire 64 qualities fully displayed to perfection. The other incarnations will not have all of these qualities in full. There is Venu Madhuri, Bhakta Madhuri, Rupa Madhuri, all of these qualities of the Lord, which is there only in Krishna. And in Swayam Rupa Krishna, it's not present in these other incarnations. So, a portion of a plenary portion of the Lord, which is basically coming from Mahasankarshana, who's an expansion finally from Balaram and Krishna, is Karanadakshay Vishnu or Mahavishnu, which the third chapter opens up with. And where is this Mahavishnu or Karanadakshay Vishnu present? So he is present in the Viraja river, which is the river which demarcates the spiritual realm and the material realm. Why? Krishna Bahirmukhana Bhogavansha Kare. We wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna. I want to be the Supreme Lord. I want to enjoy with so many material desires. Yes, in the spiritual world, everything is animate. Balaram, who expands himself as Sandhini potency of the Lord, he is instrumental in this whole animated, beautiful, dynamic, ecstatic spiritual realm where everything, every energy of the Lord is used in the service of the Lord. But if I want to become the Lord, then what happens? You need some matter. You need some inanimate material object to substitute that, to try to give us a sense of happiness in this material realm. We know that, which is why we came to the material world. To facilitate that, this portion of plenary portion of the Lord expands as Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu, what he does with the help of Mahamaya or Durga or Prakriti, there's so many terminologies, which is basically an ansha or a small section of Yogamaya potency of the Lord, personified ultimately by Srimati Radharani, is Durga Devi. He impregnates the living entities or all the souls who want to enjoy independent of Krishna into the Garbha, as Krishna describes in the 14th chapter. Just in one verse, 14th chapter describes that Tesham Garbham Dadamyaham. Mahat Brahman, this Mahat Brahman or this Pradhana, which is Durga Devi, in her womb, material Maya, I inject these living entities. Why? To create all of these different elements in this material world by which we can create all so many shapes, forms, things to try to enjoy with. So just like, right, if you go to the kitchen to cook, you need ingredients. So Mahavishnu, by his glands, creates these ingredients. And that is the first topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, which the first verse, I think, in this chapter describes. And then with Vishnu's help and inspiration and guidance and mercy, the first living entity, Brahma, who is Guna Avatara, the Avatara of the Rajoguna or passion. You need passion to create. We all know that, right? And if Brahma is not qualified, then the Supreme Lord Vishnu also expands as a Guna Avatara as Brahma. In every Brahma, there are so many Manus. One of these Vishnu incarnations of the Lord as Manvantara Avataras takes the position of a Manu. Similarly, all of these avatars comes from the Swa Amsha of the Lord. Then what happens? And just to summarize the previous one, right, when we were discussing all of these avatars, as you can see here in this, what happens? There is Karunadakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu. There are three Vishnus. Vishnus tu Trini Murtini, tu Trini Rupani. Prathamam Mahat Srishtir. The first Vishnu helps in this whole material creation. Dvitiyam Anda Samsthitham. The Garbhodakshay Vishnu enters into every universal shell. And then Kshirodakshay Vishnu is Garbhodakshay Vishnu expands as Kshirodakshay Vishnu and enters into every atom, into every the soul, next to the soul, into every living entity's heart also as Paramatma feature. And he is the one who is instrumental in attracting and bringing and having the gateway to bring all of these other incarnations, either from the spiritual sky down here, Avatara. Nishprapanche prapancham avatarayati iti avatara. Somebody who's there outside of this material realm. They are coming in here to attract us back to them. That is avatara. There are some avataras who have residences within the material sky also. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes, like many of them, like whether it's Purushottama, Narayana, Krishna, of course, Narasimha, Vamana, all of these have their residences in the spiritual sky. But some other kinds of avatars, they have residences within this material realm itself. Or some of them are just empowered expansions or empowered jivas, which also this chapter describes. Right? As you can see here, there is Shakta Veshavatara, right? That there are some avatars who are personally, the jivas are directly empowered by the Lord. Prithu Maharaj, Buddha, Kalki, Parashurama, some of them. And there are some who are vibhutis, not directly empowered, but they have some kind of a charm to them, some kind of an attraction from them. How Krishna says in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, I am these are all just a spark of my splendor. When he talks about Vibhuti Yoga. That these are all amazing things, but they are all originating from my mercy or my indirect potency itself. But Manvantara avatars are all the different Manus which is basically Krishna, who has descended and taken the position of Manus. Guna avatars, which is Shiva. Of course, we will talk about Shiva in a bit, but of course Vishnu, and then there's Brahma, who has been empowered. Leela avatars, which are many of these pastimes that we hear about and we would read in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So all of these spring from the Purusha Avatara of Kshirodakshay Vishnu. So now, quickly in 5 minutes, going through the sequence of events, what happens is that Vishnu, who is sleeping, right? Mahavishnu in the Viraja river or the causal ocean, the ocean or the river that demarcates the spiritual material world, he glances on Pradhana. Pradhana means the material manifestation of Durga Devi or of Prakriti. Basically, if this material world is compared to be a banyan tree, like 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita says, Udam Moolam Adhashakam Ashwattam Prahura Avyam. So before this banyan tree of this material world is there, for a banyan tree, there is a seed. So this is like the seed of all of the material elements. And what does Mahavishnu do? He glances on the seed. When he glances on the seed, he injects three things, right? One is the jiva or the living entity. With the living entity comes our karma and comes our swabhava, our nature. And then he does not touch Pradhana. Through his agency of Shiva or Kala potency or time, he basically stirs the three modes of material nature in equilibrium. And gradually the modes of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas start getting churned. And if we go into this takes a long time to explain, so I will just go in brief, and if you have questions, we can go in detail, of course. So as with Kala, Kala is like Kala Bhairava, Mahakala, we say, right? Which is Lord Shiva. That's why he's said to be Parameshwara for this material world. And Durga Devi, Parvati is his wife, right? Material nature and Kala potency of Vishnu. These two touch. So Vishnu himself does not touch. We hear that Vishnu is transcendental to all of this. He's always in Shuddha Sattva. Yes, because from him comes Shiva Tattva or Advaita Charya, who is the Kala potency of the Lord, which touches Pradhana. And by that touch, what happens? The jivas are injected. And just like a seed sprouts, right? First there's a sapling, then it sprouts. Similarly, there is Jnana Kriya and Dravya Shaktis, which is mode of goodness, there is Jnana or knowledge. Mode of passion, there is creative potency. And mode of ignorance, it is more matter, like Dravya potency. And by this, there basically comes about all of these elements, which is the bread and butter of what transforms into our bodies, into this universe, into everything that we see. There is Mahatattva, then there is Ahankara, Prana, mind, intelligence, ego, the Tanmatras, which are sense objects, then the 10 working senses, Panchabhutas, which are Bhumir, Apo, Analo, Vayur, Kham, earth, water, fire, air, ether. All of these elements come to being. And then Vishnu, by his cohesive force, what he does, he puts all of these elements together, and these elements then separate into all the universal shells, and they're floating in the causal ocean. And what happens? They have different layers to them, of course. Vishnu expands as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and he enters into this. It is dark. Out of his body pores comes this water, and then what happens? By his glands, a navel sprouts from his nabhi, from his navel. Lotus sprouts, and on this lotus is born the first Swayambhu or Brahma, the first living entity in this creation. And this Vishnu, of course, was entered into Anda Samsthitam, his Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And by his potency or mercy, what happens? Brahma starts creating all the 14 planetary systems. So these are the 3 Purusha Avataras. Now the last topic in 2 minutes that I want to cover is basically Virat Rupa. Somebody might ask, right? Virat Rupa is described to be an imaginary form of the Lord. Why is it not considered to be an avatara? The reason is, if we have, when we have studied Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter, it describes the Ashtanga yoga process, right? Anybody knows what are the Ashtangas? Starts with Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama. Yama, Niyama is do's and don'ts. Asana is what we see, the yoga asanas. Then there is Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, controlling breath. Then Pratyahara means taking out our mind and consciousness from everything external and taking it with him. Then what you do, dharana, means you start trying to focus on the Lord, on a generic form of the Lord. If a yogi is perfecting his Ashtanga yoga practice, dharana, dhyana, that will lead to dhyana. Dhyana vastita tadgatena manasa pashyantiyam yogino yashyantam navidasura sarvana devaya tasmai namaha. 12th kind of Bhagavatam says, Dhyana vastita tadgatena manasa pashyantiyam yogino. In his mind and inside of his heart, he can see the Paramatma feature of the Lord. When he no longer has desire for sense gratification, for trying to take pleasure from things of this world, what happens? He can focus on the Lord, dhyana, dharana, dhyana. Then in intense dhyana, samadhi, he attains samadhi, and in this way he goes back to the Vaikuntha planets. But what happens to a yogi who is not completely lost his desire for sense gratification? He's still thinking, Arey, there is something in this material world, I think, that I am still attracted to. If he has material desires, then the dhyana does not manifest. There has to be the dharana or the form of the Lord that he needs to focus on. And for that yogi who is still having material desires, Bhagavatam says, rather he focus on this Virat Rupa form of the Lord. What is this Virat Rupa form of the Lord? As we just described, right? This navel that comes out of this lotus that comes out of the navel of the Lord, the stem of the lotus and the leaves, have all of the ingredients of these planetary systems, the 14 planetary systems, in a seed state. It is basically, we talked about those 24 elements, right? Mind, intelligence, ego, chitta, consciousness or mahatattva, and then you have the 10 working senses, knowledge acquiring senses, the panchabhutas, tanmatras, all of these that Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita chapter number 13. All of these are the ingredients, building blocks to build this beautiful material world. They are present in the ingredient state in this lotus stem. So for the Virata Rupa, that can be an analogy for the physical body of the Virat Rupa. Now, Brahma, who is the first created living entity, is the soul of the Virata Rupa. Then all the living entities that Vishnu initially injected, and they came through Garbhodakshai Vishnu, who is going to be injecting this into the lotus stem to Brahma. So Brahma can populate this material universe. These living entities are the subtle body or Hiranya Garbha of this Virat Purusha. And who is the super soul of the Virata Purusha? It is Garbhodakshai Vishnu, from whom this lotus is sprouting. Just like we have physical body, subtle body, soul, super soul. For the Virata Rupa, all of this is the Supreme Lord's expansion. And when the yogi meditates on this, then the yogi thinks, what I'm desiring, I like Rasgulla, I don't like Karela. What is Rasgulla really made up of? Bhumir apo analo vayu, come. What is this Karela also made up of? The same ingredients. What is this beautiful person that I'm attracted to made up of? The same elements. What is the thing that I despise? Stool made up of? The same elements that are all coming from the Supreme Lord. So, Sarvam Vishnuvayam Girongavat Ata Sarvaswarupa Babhav. It is described. Everything is a manifestation of Vishnu. What I like also is Krishna. What I don't like also is Krishna. So the yogi thinks, what is there in this material world that is holding me down and not letting me get to the stage of dharana and samadhi, dhyana and samadhi. That is my conception. So it is not easy to get. So he meditates. And when he focuses so much on that, he realizes, yes, it is all coming from pradhana, which is like the seed, which is Krishna's material potency, who has his origin in the Chit Shakti, in the Hladini Shakti, in Radharani. She is my Pradishta Devi. She is the one whom I want to serve. So gradually he turns his face away from the material sense gratification. So this manifestation of the Lord is manifest, like when the creation happens, and unmanifest, when the creation unmanifests, as Krishna explained in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, many places. So this form of the Lord is energy of the Lord. So it is not an eternal form of the Lord, which is why 3rd chapter does not put this with all the other incarnations. This is an imaginary form of the Lord, by which through something material I can connect to understanding that everything is nothing but Brahman, which is coming from Vasudeva, which is finally coming from the Vaibhava Prakasha form, which is coming from Krishna ultimately. So this is only manifestation of Krishna. And on that Brahman platform, na sochati na kankshati, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, Samasarveshu Bhudethu, Mad Bhaktam Labate Param, as Krishna says, 18th chapter. That state, one can actually go back to Godhead. One can completely unveil the bhakti that is there in one's heart. So that is the Virat Purusha form. I'm over time. I apologize. I didn't want to rush through this. The topic is so vast that there are so many terminologies, there are so many concepts to this. And I was trying to think, how do I explain or try to digest it myself and explain it? So I had to rush through it. Again, if something was technical, if something I couldn't comprehend properly or share, I apologize. But if there are any questions, to my limited understanding, I can try to discuss.
I have a question. So is Radharani like another form of Krishna, or she?
Yes, very nice question. Thank you. Yes, Radha Krishna Eka Atma Dui Deyadari. It is said. So Radha Krishna is one. There's one supreme personality of Godhead. But he has eternally expanded himself into Radha. Radha is his pleasure potency. Ladini Shakti means pleasure potency. So Krishna has unlimited pleasure within. But why does he expand himself into Radharani? Anyonye rasa vilasa aswadana kori. To have amorous, beautiful pastimes. So I may want somebody, you may want somebody, right? Because you're not complete. But Krishna is Atmarama, himself satisfied. So from within Krishna itself, right, he eternally expands himself into Radharani. So it is his eternal pleasure potency. Just like if a girl is pregnant, right? I had a baby just a few months back. So I remember my wife was pregnant, right? We were so happy. Yes, we are having a child. And she's pregnant. She loves the child. But when you really see the child in front of you, when you see the expressions of the child, and when you really embrace the child, you feel even more happiness. You can really connect to the child. Right? So although Hadini potency, pleasure potency is within Krishna, just like when the child comes out and you can put a face to the person, when you can see the smile, you can embrace, you can have an interaction with the child, the pleasure increases even more. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, although he is one, he expands himself as two eternally. And from Krishna expand all of these expansions, and from Radharani expand all of the Lakshmis, all of the queens of Dwaraka, either the reflection of Radharani, the shadow of Radharani, they're all her expansions. Parama Preshta Gopis that you see, all the Ashtasakhis. So different expansions of Srimati Radharani, so that there can be a dynamic, beautiful, orchestrated movie in the spiritual world, which is eternal. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I'm saying that this is so nice lecture. So I want to continue tomorrow also, if you have time, please.
Sure. If there's any specific topic.
So nice, very, very nice lecture. Very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I try to repeat a few things I have read.
So Prabhuji, this was amazing. My God, how can you share, such vast topics and different things? Actually, I shared with Prabhu few points that Prabhuji, these are the things. And Prabhu included everything, whatever, was there and expressed so nicely. Well, I'm not going to say anything because Prabhu doesn't feel comfortable. I remember, his habit. Like one time when we were in Manipal, he was not too happy when I was sharing, appreciating him, and he was feeling that, maybe I'm not genuinely saying. So I will leave for other devotees to say, because I already shared a little bit in the beginning. So now devotees can share their questions and also about share about how you found the lecture.
Or if you have anything specific with chapter number 3, right, Prabhu? So I was reading that section that you asked yesterday, Virat Rupa Prabhu, how it is said Kshirodakshay Vishnu is the source of all the incarnations, right? He's the gateway for all of them to come to this material world. And in a couple places, I think verse number 5, it is said that Garbhodakshay Vishnu is the seed. So because Garbhodakshay Vishnu, as you see in this picture, he expands as Kshirodakshay Vishnu into the lotus stem. And so he's the seed for Kshirodakshay Vishnu, who's the gateway. So that was my understanding of that. And of course, Kshirodakshay Vishnu has a specific residence in Shvetadweep, in the Milk Ocean. So, and again, some of these things that I spoke was assuming that some other pre-studied concepts were already there. Like, so going back to scratch and explaining would take more long. So I assumed some things. So I apologize for that.
No, Prabhuji, the topic in itself is very vast, as you said, and you did such an amazing job. And actually, last time also you came in Diwali. All the devotees were hearing with rapt attention, especially my mother. She loved it. I mean, I remember the way she was listening. I was observing her also, and I think this is one of the most attentive English lectures she might have heard. And same thing today. So thank you so much. I think other devotees also would like to share. So I'm going to stop. So Raksha Mataji, please share.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. I had a quick question. There were slides that you were sharing, Prabhuji. You had pictures of pictures taken from a book, maybe,
Yes.
and it had nice like diagrams, like nice charts. Prabhuji, can you share this book? What book is this?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This is called Chaitanya Subodhini. So
Okay,
this
Prabhuji.
section was from Sanatan Shiksha, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes this. Sanatan Goswami says, "Oh my Lord, I am so fallen. I don't know anything. I am from a low-born family. I've been performing such abominable activities. How can you give me so much mercy, so much humility?" Mahaprabhu's heart melts with that, and Mahaprabhu describes this in this 20th chapter of Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the notes for that has been written in Subodhini series, Chaitanya Subodhini. I can put it in the chat. So
Thank
yes.
you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Prabhupada also wrote an abridged version of this in a book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. But the pictures are very nice, right? Because when you read this, when I read Chaitanya Charitamrita also, it's like, wow, Swayam Rupa, Swayam Prakash, Prabhava Prakash, Tad Ekatma Rupa, all of these different terminologies. And so you need to meditate on it. But when you have a picture, it's easier to meditate on and yes, draw an understanding. Of course, there are so many beautiful books. This one life is not enough, right? One Prabhupada spent so much timeless hours to try to translate all of this for us. And Prabhupada said one should study this like a lawyer studies his law books. And if you go to other scriptures of the Goswamis, right, it describes what is in the spiritual world, what happens, what is the day like, what is the night like, what is the Nitya Leela that's happening, all the ecstasies there. But to get to that point, one should at least cover these basic books. So one can really dive into the oceanic nectar of what the Acharyas have left behind for us.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That was very nice. So any devotees would like to ask any questions or any comments, any points? Chaitanya Prabhu, Nirbhay Prabhu, Natasha Mataji, Anita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Nirbhay here. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful lecture. It was so amazing, and you so nicely described everything here. Prabhuji, can you please repeat one thing? I could not. I'm not intelligent enough to follow everything you're saying. You're saying it very nicely, but I could not grasp onto all the things. So one or two things that I'm forgetting is what did you explain about the Virat Rupa's soul and body?
Yes.
Can you repeat, please?
So like a body, right? Our body has a physical body, of course. And then we have a subtle body, right? Which travels with the soul when you leave this body, which is mind, intelligence, and ego, and consciousness, of course, right? With the soul, right? And guided by the super soul. Krishna says, Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudani Maya. In this machine of the human body, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hridyesh Arjuna Tishtati. So I live next to the soul as a super soul, like two birds on one tree, right? So we have the tree or the physical body. Then we have our subtle body, our mind, intelligence, and ego. Then we have our soul, which is us. And we have Paramatma, super soul. Similarly, for the universal creation, right? For this material world, for this specific material world, right? The lotus stem, which has the ingredients, the seeds, for creation of this whole universe, the 14 planetary systems, the physical 14 planetary systems, what it's made up of. That is the stem of the lotus, which transforms itself into the 14 planets. That is like the physical body of the Virat Rupa. Then what happens in this stem? The souls are injected within the stem. When Garbhodakshay Vishnu, he expands as Shirodakshay Vishnu, he enters into the stem slowly going up. Along with him, all the living entities also go through the stem. And how many living entities, right? Initially, there were so many living entities. when in Mahavishnu's body, when he glances and all these elements form the universal shell, he divides those living entities into all of these different universes. In one universe, we have Chaturmukha Brahma, there are 100 Mukha Brahmas, 1,000, million, 10 million Mukha Brahmas, different Brahmas based on the sizes of the universe. Right? These different universes, different sizes. So
Yes,
all the
please.
living entities are now present in the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And when Garbhodakshaya Vishnu's navel comes this lotus, all those souls, millions, billions, unlimited souls, they enter into the stem. And these souls are like the subtle body of Virat Rupa. And Brahma, who is present on this lotus, is like the soul of the Virat Rupa. So the body of the Virat Rupa is the physical elements that we talked about, those 24 elements. Then the subtle body, which is like our mind, intelligence, ego, is like the soul, all the souls that are injected in. And who injects them in? Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. He's one injecting. And for this universe, the soul is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, because he's the person who's overseeing all of this. So when you want to meditate on this, right, then when the mind is totally enwrapped into understanding, wow, this material world that I'm trying to enjoy is made up of these elements only. And these elements are coming from Vishnu itself. Whether it's the souls that the Vishnu injects, and whether it is all these ingredients, 24 ingredients, like rice, dal, mustard seeds, oil, hing, you need all of this, salt to make nice khichdi, right? Khichdi might be the end product. But I'm attracted to the khichdi, but I'm looking, all these elements are also coming from the Supreme Lord itself. And the soul, or the first Swayambhu, Brahma, he is the first embodied living entity in this universe. So when the yogi meditates on this in this way, having the analogy of this analogy is to make it more easier for us to comprehend Virat Rupa. Because Virat Rupa, as you have heard descriptions, even in 11th chapter Bhagavad Gita, it is amazing, right? You cannot, Bhagavatam describes the clouds and the sky is like the lungs of the Virat Rupa. The trees are like the hairs on his body. The rivers are like the veins on Virat Rupa. The upper portion of us are the upper planetary systems. How do you give a shape to it? So the yogi meditates on it this way, so that he understands, yes, everything is coming from the Lord. What I'm attracted to is Krishna, not these other things. He leaves his material desires and makes progress.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. And this is described in detail in that second canto, second chapter onwards in Bhagavatam. So again, all these concepts we're discussing is like multiple cantos of Bhagavatam. So every single statement is a Bhagavatam class in itself. But because it's a trailer, right? It's like saying, okay, here is a trailer of this movie, Dangal, 3 Idiots, whatever movie, right? Here is a trailer. Now you have 20 minutes or 10 minutes, explain the whole story. How much details can we go, right? So when you have, every verse we meditate on, then it itself takes a long time to digest. So
thank you so much. We want to see we are more interested now to see the whole movie now.
Okay.
So Prabhuji, everybody is asking, when are you going to come next? Tomorrow or after that?
Oh, Prabhuji, I'll come next to hear you, Prabhuji. Really.
No, we are
I could not do justice to this, of course, but yes, if there's a specific topic we can discuss, Prabhuji, yes, whenever we want.
Yeah, this
Sure.
same topic, maybe, next step, like what all things you want to share, you please see your schedule, and if you can give us a regular schedule and come for a series, like this on a regular basis.
Either a series on like Bhagavad Cosmology, because that will come up in the second canto,
Yes.
and again the fifth canto, like
Yes.
that, or something about incarnations or anything specific, Prabhuji, that
Yes, Prabhuji.
you want, Prabhu, that you can, when you talk to devotees, that you desire, it will be purifying for me also to.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Okay, just let me see. Anybody else would like to ask any questions? Somebody has raised hand, I think.
I feel so inspired to hear all of you on a Monday evening. You're also enthused to study Bhagavatam, and every single day. That's amazing. I wish to follow in your footsteps and be so dedicated also.
You have studied so nicely, Prabhu. So you definitely are studying every day. So anything else? Suresh Prabhu, Rakshita Mataji, Nirmala Mataji, Deepika Mataji. Anybody else would like to share? Okay, Chaitanya Prabhu is saying something.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanavad Pram. Thank you, Prabhu, for the such wonderful class, Prabhu. Both you and Ram Gopal Prabhu are big inspirations for me. I hope I can become even 1% of devotees that you are.
Other way around.
Like, Prabhu, I had a question, Prabhu. I've never heard of the definition that you had said for Krishna, how you described Krishna, because usually we hear about all attractive and sarva akrishititi. Can you repeat that definition, Prabhu?
So, Krishir bhu vachako shabdo. Bhu vachako means like this whole material manifestation, right? How Gayatri also, mantra also starts, how this whole material manifestation, he's the source for it. So he is the greatest of the great, like how we talked about, right? From Krishna, who is in the spiritual realm, how he expands as Balaram, Chaturvyuha, Narayana, second Chaturvyuha, and from there, Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Shirodaksha Vishnu, how when they are the ones who create this whole material manifestation. And Balaram, of course, for the whole spiritual world, he is the greatest of the great. So greatness personified. Na kaschin, na aschin nivrittair vachako. Na, basically na, the translation is the word na, N-A, is the personification of extreme bliss, happiness. So one who is a personification of greatness and personification of happiness, Tayor Aikyam, when these two come together in one, Parabrahman, that supreme Lord, Krishna iti abhidhiyate, is described to be Krishna. Na jane janeta ki abdir amrita Krishna iti varnadvai. The Sai Rupa Goswami said, I do not know how much bliss is there in these two syllables, Krish and Na. Yes, so greatness, supreme greatness and supreme sweetness. And so Radharani also is so much intoxicated with Krishna's love that she cannot pronounce more syllables than two. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And so when Krishna comes in the mood of Radharani as Gauranga Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Rath Yatra, he is not able to pronounce Jagannatha, Jagannatha. It's 4 syllables. Jagannatha. He's going into so much bliss. So he's only saying Jaga, 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 Jaga. Because Radharani is used to pronouncing only 2 syllables. And there is so much bliss in those 2 syllables when one really tastes the sweetness of it. And of course, that is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra that comes, which is Radha and Krishna meeting and separating. Yes. So that is Jiva Goswami's commentary, described first in Mahabharata, and Prabhupada writes this in a purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much once again. So we hope and pray that we'll continue to get your association on regular basis, and we can keep learning from you.
I also pray, Prabhu, I get your association. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Prabhuji. So we'll end it here. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya
Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Ved Pran Prabhu ki jai. Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. So
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you all the devotees for joining. So we'll continue our conference call tomorrow, same time, and morning Japa conference. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.